Warning: this podcast may contain spoilers as well as coarse language. Viewer discretion is advised.
Do-do-do! Hello everyone and welcome back to the last episode of Steins Biweekly. We are here to talk about episode 23 and the entire series. It's a very bittersweet moment because while I'm sad to say goodbye to Steins Gate Zero, I'm also happy to not have to edit podcasts in 2 days. So there's a win and a lose in everything. But today I am joined by the Tuturu Fennekin himself.
Oh, hello.
That's you.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say Mozilla at the end.
No, I was going to leave you hanging.
All right. Hey, everybody. Listen, I'm under the attack. I'm under the organization's attack right now. If you hear some weird noises, that's them upstairs. They've infiltrated my home. I'm doing my best to protect myself back here, but, you know, who knows how long it's going to last. Also, the other weird noise is my cat snoring, if you hear that as well.
Yeah, getting attacked from all sides.
It's hell.
Prayers for Maz. One like equals one prayer. We're also joined by a super special guest. We have Admiral Kurd. How are you doing today?
Oh, hey, I'm doing pretty good. Just got done watching the finale, so yeah. I'm a mod on Our Song of Ice and Fire, which is the Game of Thrones books, and I'm also was the editor of Maester Monthly, which is the Song of Ice and Fire like subreddits podcast. So kind of like getting together with a different subreddit podcast here for this episode.
Top
Quite
10
excited.
anime crossovers, right?
Yeah,
Awesome.
exactly.
Yeah, so we're joined by an expert. I will call you that both because of your past experience and because your username has Admiral in it. So I feel like it's fitting.
Yeah, well, when you analyze books forever that, you know, you never get the next sequel to come out, you kind of get deep diving in there.
I feel you on that, especially as a Hunter x Hunter fan, where the hiatus
Oh.
is strong and the anime sequel is non-existent. But speaking of a sequel that is existent, Steins Gate Zero. We finally saw the last episode today, and I'm glad I could bring you on for such an amazing episode. I think we're all in agreement on this one that they really killed it with the ending.
Absolutely, that like last scene there, I was not expecting that, and that was such like a big relief because I'd like played the VN and you don't get anything like at the very end like that, and it was such like a thrilling moment with like the coat of Suzuha like waving in the wind and Okabe like appearing like that.
Yeah, because we are both visual novel readers, as I like kind of show up for, but kind of keep forgetting the visual novel since it's been a couple years. But I do think, I don't know about you, but like my biggest complaint with the visual novel was the ending, where I felt like it was too abrupt and just it kind of cut too short. And I was really worried, honestly, for this last episode. I had no idea what they were going to do for this ending, because I did feel like there was something there that needed to be fixed in this adaptation. But they more than exceeded my expectations. As you said, that last scene was just absolutely perfect. Like, I think the whole series is worth it just for that post-credit scene. I would be so bold as to say that. But let me see. Maz, what do you think? Because you're the anime only who's probably been bullied by my constant visual novel talking. So what did you think?
What do you want me to say? This episode cured my depression. It was like, you know, because I've really had an interesting day, because I tweeted last night that it never really settled in that Zero was ending today. You know, I just didn't think about it, and then I was making my new video this morning, which is out now. You should check it out.
Shameless
Was
plug.
just I was sitting just in my chair. I was for whatever reason I was watching the OPs again, and I'm like, oh man, Steins Gate Zero's ending today. Holy shit, that's kind of sad, because you know I really like this show so much, and having a new season of it is just so important for me. It's been so great having this, and now this is effectively the end of Steins Gate, especially as you consider that this really ties into the original. So it's like it feels like the whole thing is over now.
Yeah.
And so I was like sad about that. But then that episode came out, and I'm just like, you know what? Like, I'm glad I saw that. It doesn't matter if we're never going to get it again. That was amazing. It was everything that I wanted, everything I might have expected, and just far, far more. like for me, it was the perfect ending, especially because I'm a huge Mayushi fan, and that was a Mayushi episode. She did so much in this episode. We had 2 Mayuris in this episode.
The only
We
way
had
to top
2 of
one
them.
Mayuri is 2 Mayuris.
Imagine what you can do with 1 Mayuri. Now you have 2 of them, dude.
Not enough Upas to go around.
That's true. Yeah, I think I really loved about this episode that I think just really made it perfect. I would call it like the perfect ending, is that we really got to see the 2 big players of Steins Gate Zero, which for me are Okabe, of course, but Mayuri herself was. We get to see Mayuri's character arc, and we finally get to see like what was Mayuri working towards from the beginning, because we saw her worry for Okabe get like more and more extreme as she saw like the husk of a person he had become after the previous events. And we really just got to see like she needs to let him go back in time and save the world. Like she needs to be that person to help him and slap him back into reality. And it was great coming to see her realize this by the end of this episode. But it was cool because we got to see her talking to herself, which is something we didn't get in the visual novel. We get to see where her and Suzuha end up, which we also didn't get to see. So it was a lot of added, like, good stuff. Like, a lot of added character development as well.
I was kind of nervous when they started, like, panning up on Okabe at that, like, last moment there. I thought, like, maybe they might go with a visual novel-style twist and have it be Leskinen.
Yeah, that would be scary. I didn't even think of that, but that would be awful.
Old Leskinen had hid out inside the time machine. He was like, I finally found the Shaman Girls.
Yeah, he finally found the Shaman Girls. That would be the best twist.
I travel time for them.
It's like OVA. Okay. So we still got an OVA too, so there's a little bit more coming in, like a couple months.
Yeah, I wonder what that's going to be, because I feel like it's a pretty good place to stop. Like, I feel like we've wrapped everything up quite nicely.
Some people are thinking that it will be like back in the Steins Gate world line. It will be like Okabe meeting Maho, or I get they could always go back and fill in the one like alternate world line that they skipped. I don't think they do that, but I'm wondering.
Was that the really bad end?
It's the bad 2011 or so.
Yeah, because it was cool because I think there's been a lot of like, I think in both pros and cons to a lot of anime original content being added and a lot of visual novel content being retracted, which I think is good, because I think a lot of the things they added filled in the holes that were left in place by the visual novel, and a lot of the things they took away from the visual novel were frankly very dumb. And like, I think there were some like very bad things in the visual novel, and they took that out, which I am like very relieved at. So I don't really know like where else they would go with the OVA. Like, I don't know what else they would put there. Like, they could do one of the bad ends. They could show us the like Steins Gate original timeline, like maybe everyone meeting up, like Okabe meeting everyone, and it'll be super cute, and like it'll be like pure fan service, just seeing everyone get to hang out. But it was
beach episode.
Yeah, we didn't actually get the beach episode, did we? We just got the date episode. Steins Date, as someone has called it. But yeah, so what did you guys think of like Okabe in the future with the D-mail scene?
I thought it was all right. I didn't really have much of it. I didn't really have much to say about it. At least in comparison to other things, I guess. It was just nice seeing it tie into episode 23 like that.
Yeah.
They had it in the VN, and they have Ferris holding the camera in that scene. And I've never kind of like got that, because when you watch it back in the anime the first time, it's clearly like Okabe leaving it on a table.
Like, it's on like a tripod.
yeah, and he like reaches out and covers it with his hand at the end of the message. So like,
I really liked how when they tied it back into episode 23. Well, first off, the ultimate insert songs, like holy shit, like Mayuri slapping Okabe and then Hacking to the Gate playing was just such a nice treat, because I kind of feel like since they took the dialogue out of it, it was almost like Mayuri was singing Hacking to the Gate to Okabe. Which was kind of cool. Like when you get to see the lyrics on the screen about how like he's traveled over and over again and it's lost meaning to him. Like that really does feel like she's talking to him about how like he's lost track and feeling of everything, but you know, he's got to snap out of it and go back and get to the world of Steins Gate. So it was cool how they tied that in, but they also did a good job of like tying Steins Gate 0 back into the original without re-showing us the original series. Like the way they connected Mayuri going back in time, relaying the message to herself, slapping sense into Okabe, and then him getting the text message from himself in the future, and then transporting us back to the future where we get to see them record it, was like such a nice way of connecting everything in a way I didn't feel like we got from the visual novel. And that was just such an added bonus of quality. Like that was just so nice.
Yeah, I was always wondering how they're going to do that, because you could do it the other way too, where you like try and tie it in so like these episodes slip in directly in between episode 23 and 24 of the original, but they didn't do that here, and they like tried to just sell the series as itself, which I kind of liked, and I thought that it fit very well into like how the ending stretches out, because how could you do like the last couple of scenes if you were still trying to fit it in between those two episodes? And they didn't try and do that, and they just went with this nice overture with the different music playing from the OPs and different EDs and songs, and it worked out really well to like tie everything together.
Yeah. It was so nice to see. Like it was just such a cool way of handling it. And then like we didn't get that, like in the visual novel, we didn't get to see where Mayuri and Suzuha ended up. We didn't get to see like where Okabe ends up when he's time traveling. So then we get that at the end too. It was like, I don't know if the anime original content would be considered fan service, but I mean, I feel pretty happy as a fan, and I will most definitely take it as an addition to the series.
Well, the Suzuha and Mayuri stuff is in a drama CD, but it's not in the VN, which really like miffed me when I got done playing it. I'm like, why didn't they include this in
That makes sense.
in the VN?
Yeah.
Like it's so key to the finale of the series, because the whole, like even this series, because they go back and they changed episode 23 of the original to make it beta to give Mayuri more of a room that I'm sure Maz liked, with Mayuri's character having room to grow with like these great Mayuri moments.
Yeah.
And so like to omit that from the VN was like almost sacrilegious to the theme of itself.
Yeah, like I see no reason why they couldn't have included that in the visual novel, so it kind of would have made the story feel more full. And that's what I feel like we got from this anime adaptation. Like I feel like we got a fuller story, which is really what I want. But I was also the only thing I think from this episode that was somewhat suspicious, like kind of weird, was Mayuri talking to herself like in the time machine, separating them. Like I'm not really sure how that works. I think that it was like they weren't fully in this time, so like they never fully landed. Like I think that's what happened, but I can see some people having problems with like Mayuri talking to herself with just a time machine separating her.
Well, it's explained by like Beta Suzuha, no, an Alpha Suzuha. Am I getting them right? In the original, where like she has more knowledge of like how time travel works, where this Suzuha, like they start talking about paradoxes, but the Alpha one says like you can't have a paradox. You could meet your past self. Like that's what John Teeter says. Like it's possible to meet your past self and stuff. So yeah, it's like the time machine is just all glowy, like it's half materialized. I think that's also might be because Suzuha is like almost on fuel or battery power, and so she really can't even bring it into focus. Like it's just on the teetering edge of falling into the abyss of the black hole, and she can only hold it here for long enough.
Yeah, that's what I would say. Like, okay, that's what I thought. Like, I thought it was kind of like teetering, but I wasn't 100% sure. So I'm glad you could clear that up and had an answer, since I was slacking.
Also in the drama CD, like when I think it's all from the Mayuri of the original's point of view, and like the phone call is very staticky, and like she can hardly like make it out and stuff. So
and this was in the drama CD, right?
Yeah, this was in the drama CD. I think it's the one that's like on YouTube, because it's hard to find this stuff and because you need a translation of it too. So
yeah, okay, that makes sense. Because I think the only drama CD I saw was the one with like Kurisu as like a yandere, and it was like Okabe was in some like dating sim. It was really fun, but it was like very different. So okay, that's good to know. And I guess I don't know where it is on YouTube. I don't know if it's tough to find, as you said. But if anyone who's listening is interested, good luck searching for it. But that also fills in the missing pieces of where like some of the content came from for this episode. Speaking on that, like, what did you guys think of like Steins Gate Zero as a whole. Like we're done the series. What do you guys think?
You know, I've said this a lot, but I never thought. I always thought this was just kind of just a fan service thing. So I never really had high expectations for the anime, and of course I didn't. So I enjoyed this immensely. I honestly think that this is the best that this is just the best experience I've ever had watching a new anime. It just really is. You know, watching this show week by week for 6 months after anticipating it for 3 years. You know, part of the reason why this is like so overwhelming for me is because I got into anime in like Steins Gate was one of the first anime I ever really got into, and I watched it like days before Zero got announced.
Oh wow!
So it's like for as long as I've been into anime, it's like Steins Gate Zero has always been an inevitability that it will happen someday, and now that day has finally come. It's passed, and I live to tell the tale, and it's just it's something like that. So I always wanted this to be just, I don't know, just a time where I'd watch it and it'd just be fun, regardless of what it was. You know, I didn't really care what it was. If it had a good story, fine. If it didn't, whatever. And overall, I would say it did have a good story. I think that I rated this a 10 on Mal. I would still give it a 9 on its own because I think that it had some really high highs. I think that it was effective at what it wanted to tell, what it wanted to say. But of course, there were some issues within itself. I would say that even though I didn't have any expectations going into it, the anime still set up certain expectations and did not fully deliver on them at the end of the day. Because there are some things that within this whole season that they never really elaborated on, even with the ending. As much as I love the ending, you know, it didn't cover everything. Like Mayushi's friends, for example.
Yeah,
Never explained.
You were afraid that Okabe's time machine with the black hole tracker was going to accidentally jump back to like episode 13 and latch on to Katie and Fubuki because they were like the black hole. The storyline went nowhere.
Yeah, because I don't think. Yeah, they got like some more focus, I'd say, in the visual novel, but they were always kind of like, I'd say they're kind of like a Chekhov's gun that never really got fired, so to speak. Like they were always kind of there as like a plot point, but they weren't really as elaborated on as they could have been, nor as important to the plot as they could have been. But I do think, yeah, I agree with that overall statement. Admiral, I actually don't know like what your history with anime is as much as Maz, because I've talked with Maz more, but I don't know like what your favorite anime is, but like Steins Gate is like me and Maz's favorite anime. So, and we both watched it long after it had aired. So I think we're kind of in like a really special boat of we get to see a follow-up to our favorite series and get to actually experience it airing, which is pretty cool. So it's kind of like we almost got to be there back when Steins Gate came out, even though it's, many years later. But I think you're like extensive visual novel reader, so I imagine the series is special for you too. So I think we've all had a really special experience. But what did you think overall? Because this is like our first time talking to you about it, so I'm sure you have a lot more to say that we haven't gotten to heard about before.
Okay, well, you should know I can count the number of animes I've seen on both hands. So, like, I do a lot, like, of it doesn't matter, like, what genre it comes from. If it's good, it's good. And for me, like, Steins Gate, I, like, started watching it, like, last year, around this time, actually. It was the first time that I saw it. Was somebody had recommended to me Erased, Boku Dashi, probably know it. Yeah, that. And I was like, that series is pretty good. And it was like, I was looking on Mal to see like what other series might exist here. And I saw this one about like these people who they send friends who send text messages. It sounded like some strange teen comedy. And I was like, put it off for a little while. And then I like picked it up and I was like sold from the first episode. Like,
nice.
I think like I actually like the first half of Steins Gate. I think probably better than I like the second half.
This is good
that is the correct
civilization.
opinion.
Yeah.
Oh.
Look at this. Look at this. Look. Sorry to interrupt. To all of r/anime or anyone on YouTube, you don't need to watch 100 episodes of 100 anime to have good taste. You can just watch it and have good taste from the beginning. Like you can just know that Steins Gate is good from the beginning. Because look at our Admiral over here. He already knew. Thank you. Great taste confirmed. Okay, go ahead.
Like there are some shows like in the Western world, like Better Call Saul. I don't know if either of you watch it, but like it is slow as molasses for most of the time. But the way that it builds and creates things is really good. And I like really enjoy, especially the ending moment where like it cuts into the ED in episode 8 when like Akihabara has changed and Okabe's realizing it's more fun for me watching him mess up than it is watching him solve things and like seeing things run away from him and get out of control. At least the way that it cultivated and created those moments was just really special, and they're really well done. And so, yeah, like after I was done with that, Steins Gate for me is the GOAT. It's like the greatest of like the 10 anime that I've seen. So
Praise be.
But I would also put it up there with like possibly the best time travel story that I've seen. It definitely has like a unique ending compared to all the others. But if I were to say like I have one caveat with the original, it was that Okabe spends like episode 12 through 22 or whatever trying to beat convergence around Mayuri and like not being able to defeat it. And he just tries to undo everything that he's been doing in all of his time travel journeys. And then at the end, like he's dealt this insurmountable card, which is that he has to try and save Kurisu, which is like impossible given his experiences with Mayuri. And it's just kind of like almost a Deus Ex Machina to like fall from the ceiling, fall from the sky in his phone, like gives him the ticket out of how to save her. And so what I was really curious about Zero and why I actually decided to play a visual novel, because I'd never played one like before, but I wanted to like flesh that out and get more on that. And I think for me, the visual novel like dealt more with how Okabe met that realization of how you can beat convergence, whereas the anime, it had those same elements, but it kind of like skimmed the surface with them a bit more and focused more on Mayushi, which they did really well. But I felt like that and the Russia stuff wasn't as strong in the anime as it could have been to fulfill those like 3 factors of what you knew from the original that Zero came from. So I would say like
That's true.
I love it. I wouldn't, maybe I don't love it. I think it's good, but it does come up a little bit shorter for me than it should have been, because I took like a little bit more of that from it, like as to why I liked the visual novel. So long-winded answer.
No, that's a great way of putting it. And some great insight.
I do hear the visual novel and the anime do have some unique pros and cons to each other.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting if they come out with an Elite and like it was all like fan edited, mashed up into like a different version. I'd be curious to see what somebody would do with that.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting to see too, because I think like I keep talking. I've been kind of talking about how like the visual novel had its highs and lows. Like there were some low parts, but I'd say the majority of the lows of the visual novel got completely cut out, which I am very excited about. I'm talking about like, remember that one, like this slight visual novel spoilers, like just if you don't want to listen to them, like zone out for 10 seconds. So like, you know, the like Kagari getting plastic surgery to look like Yuki thing. That was like,
what?
Yeah, that happens. Yes.
See,
like,
oh, you just spoiled the worst review.
I'm gonna put a time marker for that, but like, you know, that kind of thing, like they cut that out, thank God, because that was just I thought that was very dumb. Like we do not need that to exist. And I'm glad that was one of the things that they replaced with anime original content, because that's what I was not looking forward to, and I'm glad that like editors stepped up to the plate.
Here's the thing, I didn't even know that was Yuki when it happened, because her face is like still hidden inside a helmet. I'm like, who the hell is that?
Yeah, they like went out of their way to make that a thing too. Like they could have just left it be one of the 3 like helmet people, but then they pulled that, and I'm like, well, here it is.
And like the worst thing with that is it excises Yuki actually from an entire one of the routes.
Yeah.
Like her character, like so when like on another episode where somebody said like I think like they don't do enough with Yuki, I'm like, you have no idea.
Yeah,
Like,
we don't want
she's
them to
totally
do more with
absent.
Yuki. Yeah, we don't want that. Yeah, so I think they cut out some of that, and I think in the place of that, the pacing suffers quite a little bit. Like I think the pacing suffers a bit because we have like some slower parts where like where they kind of just I think they could kind of like drag out the downtime of like Okabe, not like moping, but kind of like Okabe dwelling on things. And I think like, in the visual novel, it was all like you get one route and you know Okabe's dwelling, but then he does actions. So it's kind of like in their attempt to kind of like combine everything, we get the combined Okabe dwelling, which can make it seem like he's just moping around and not really doing anything because like they're kind of waiting for that next action and then bridging them together, which I think is just part of the down parts of having a multiple timeline visual novel that isn't really linear.
Yeah, I think also some of it has to deal with it, correct me if I'm wrong, but like the constraints of having to do everything in 20-minute blocks, where sometimes they feel like they need to take something that should be 10 minutes and stretch it out so that it has like an arc inside the episode. And others, like it seems like they take like 45 minutes and condense it down to 20. So
yeah, I think that is part of the limitations of like, especially since a lot of anime are either like one core or two core. So it's like you either get 12 or 13 episodes or 23 and 24 episodes. And as a lot of people point out with visual novel adaptations is it's like, how are you going to cut down 20 hours into 8 hours? Like, how are you going to cut down all this content and make it into a TV format? And I'm glad we got two cores. Like, thank God for that. But it does make it difficult to adapt, which is why I think a lot of times visual novels especially are very tough to adapt into anime, which is why I think shows like Steins Gate and Steins Gate Zero stand out so much is because they handle that adaptation well, but they still kind of suffer a bit because of it. But I'm glad we got it. I think they did really well. I think they did a lot with what they had, and they cut out the bad things for me, but because there were more bad things that I didn't mention, which I will save for Maz's sanity and spoiler sakes. But it was like a really cool series to experience. Like I think it's kind of tough because I don't know about you, but for me, my favorite scene and when I was playing through the series was what we got around episode 8, where Okabe somehow like time sleeps and he's seeing Kurisu again, and then like they have that really sad reunion, but then sad departure again. Like that was kind of the high point of the visual novel for me, besides some of the endings. So it was kind of tough when we had what I consider like the best part of the series within the first half.
Yeah, I kind of wish that was bumped back. See, depending on which route you go, whether it's Vegan Altair or Promise Russian and Bento, it like that scene can either come like when you've played through it like 3/4 of it, or it can come when you've played through 1/4 of it. And I think that one might fit better like around episode 30. I would actually trade positions with the Daru Yuki thing and try and like bump that up and bump the Kurisu part back a bit. I don't know if that would work or not, but
I feel like it would just in tone, because like some of the big complaints from the original Steins Gate series is like, you know, everyone complains about the slow first half and then the very intense second half, but at least we get that feeling of like we're building towards something. This was tough because it was like a bunch of mini roller coasters where it's like you have like the gang is hanging out for a couple episodes, then we have them getting attacked by someone, then they go back to chilling for a bit, and then like they got Okabe and Kurisu, but then we have like a date episode a couple episodes later. So it's like very much tonal whiplash between the slice of life moments and the intense plot moments, which makes it kind of tough because I don't really know. I mean, you don't know what to expect in a good and bad way, but it just makes it kind of uncomfortable going from episode to episode.
Especially on like a weekly series of 20 minutes, where if you're binging, it probably wouldn't like matter all that much.
Yeah, exactly. And it is kind of interesting because the visual novel did have like you could get different routes depending on the actions you took, where
totally different routes.
Yeah, totally different. So you had events happening differently, whereas this one it was just, you know, I mean, we get everything as it comes along, even if it doesn't necessarily make that much sense. Like the date episode happening, like after they got attacked like twice by Russia. I think Maho lost her computer after that point. Like it's very weird because like when Maho loses the computer, like there's this huge sense of urgency that like shit's about to hit the fan.
Mm-hmm.
But then we have like Daru and Yuki going on a date, which is just very weird.
To go back to one of Maz's points, that's another thing that was kind of like dropped from it is that Daru takes her hard drive and stashes it in the time machine in like episode 17, and that doesn't come up again. And like they make a big point during like episode like the one where they have to delete Amadeus, where they have to like delete all time machine related Kurisu stuff, but like that's still there, kind of. So
yeah,
I guess they don't know where it's at.
I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that too. I guess they did it as well. I guess we're not alone. You know, as much as I complain about like why don't these anime creators, why don't they like remember all these small points when they leave stuff on the table? You know, I can't really blame them. We've been doing this series like almost every week, and I've forgotten like so much from this series already. Like I forgot the visual novel, I forgot some of the stuff that happened earlier on.
Yeah.
So I don't blame them. I barely remember as well. So good game, anime creators, you guys are doing well.
They must have known that they only had 23 episodes, and that was probably asking a lot because the recent Syad adaptations of Chaos Child and Occultic 9, although that one doesn't technically count, they were only 12 episodes, and they very much felt like they needed more than that.
Yeah.
So, and those were really bad. So, but of course, I assume they wanted Steins Gate to be actually good, but still, it's a lot to ask for funding for a 2-core show these days, it seems.
I think they have some kind of leeway because, you know, it's like the visual novel sold really well. So it's a bit more like comfortable, and that like there's a greater sign of return on investment for this than say Occultic 9, which I think was a novel turned into a visual novel, but I don't know much about the novel, and I think that's kind of the point. It's like I don't know much because it's not that big, but
yeah, but they must have known that, you know, they only had 23 episodes and they had to do whatever they could with them. They couldn't do everything, so they kind of thought out what should be what like they absolutely need to have within this anime, and then what can be cut out.
Yeah,
because the things that, you know, there are lots of things that they cut out, but I'm also not entirely sure if they were fully necessary. Maybe necessary to fully understand the plot, but the actual points that we're making, like, you know, the basic outline of things, you could kind of get with what we had already, you know. I think anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
They did leave some things in too that were just like events that people liked, which I'm kind of glad that they did, even if they didn't like go anywhere. Because personally, my favorite part of the VN was, as like I've mentioned already, like, and I'm still kind of disappointed we didn't get more with it, is the alternate timeline. Because one of the things that I really liked about like Zero in particular is because you have this guy who has the ultimate like power in the universe. He can like manipulate time, and it really stresses him to the brink. And then he decides to give it up in this. And now he's like saying, okay, I'm not going to hold this power anymore. And the cat is out of the bag. Like the paper is out there that Kurisu wrote. All her information is out. Amadeus is out. What happens when somebody else gets a hold of it and does something with it? And you got like a little bit of that with like the Kurisu return to the Alpha line. But I felt like that plot point was like a nice theme to Zero that I wish they would have touched more on, I guess.
Yeah, I do agree. Were you like, when you say in the other timeline, are you referring to that one part where like he's in like a literal war zone too?
Yes.
Yeah, so that was also a disappointment for me because I loved that part as well. Like that was really intense because you get transported immediately to like Okabe in this war zone, and you're getting like these very descriptive lines about how like, you know, it smells like human decay and you're like underground and you're in a cave. And then like the only sense we got of that was really that like dream sequence early on in the series, which was not as intense enough.
And it's like that moment in particular, it's not just that the future is in jeopardy. It's also now that you've given up the power of manipulating time. Now other people have access to it, and it can destroy your present as well. And that was like sort of like an eyeball shocker that I kind of felt like that would have worked really well to sort of like jolt Okabe's memory as he gets closer towards like things getting undone. Like you have the alpha line with Kurisu, and then you have this moment, and it's just like things are starting to just get out of control, and he doesn't know what to do. And I think it would push him to the brink a bit more to where like he understands like, okay, maybe Hoin Kyoma has to come back.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think I do. That's a great point, because I do think it's like we do need that sense of urgency, because I think that kind of ties into my problem with like I feel like there's almost too much downtime. Like we need to have more of like a fire under Okabe's ass to like take action to try and like overcome your past failures and take action to prevent the world from becoming World War III. Like that was something we definitely got a lot of in the visual novel, because you always had this sense of unease that you could be transported to another timeline where you're literally in World War III and you're struggling to survive. Like that real sense of uneasiness, like unstableness. And I feel like we did get a bit too comfy, especially in between the major actions of this part.
Yeah, it would have helped like add some more like meat, some more depth to the otherwise like Mr. Clean or no Mr. Clean Sergeant Clean. What's in there, and yeah.
And I did think ultimately the series still did well in like I think we still got some like very solid Okabe development, because that was always I think Okabe, you know, as much as I have my Kurisu avatar, Maz has Mayuri, and we got the double Mayuris this episode. I think Okabe has always been the heart and soul of the series. He's always been what made the series so impressive. And I think we did get some solid development for him in this. And I don't know about you guys, but nothing gets me more hyped than seeing Okabe go full Hoin Kyoma, like we got to see, especially towards the end of the series, and then what we got to see in this post-credit scene. Like, holy God, what a legend.
Yeah, to end on it also with like him talking down Leskinen as Hoin Kyoma was like, that was a nice ending to like the rest of everything. I still don't know how he got off the roof in this or in the VN, because they're like surrounded, but whatever, it's fun.
It's fun. It was fun to see, and it was kind of cool because I've been also bitching about Kagari a lot this time. Like I've been bitching about Kagari with how useless she is, and like how she's kind of pointless in the series, and she's kind of just been a pain. But I appreciate how they kind of redeemed her in this last episode. So that was kind of cool too. Like we got to see, in a way, Moeka get redeemed. We got to see Kagari kind of be redeemed. So I feel like it kind of came full circle for all of the characters, because even though in the original Steins Gate we had instead of Okabe having the camera on the tripod, we now had Ferris holding the camera. It kind of felt like a nice way of saying like everyone helped him come towards this end, and it wasn't just him.
Think about that, Maz.
About what?
Yeah, indeed. I said indeed.
Everything came full circle. Like every character got something to do towards the end.
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting. You know, of course, Mayushi, she had her thing. We had lots of Kurisu as well. I even liked Moeka in this last episode.
Yeah.
Like I've always had a certain disdain for Moeka for obvious reasons, but in this season, even though she wasn't really around that much, I felt like all of her moments were gold. You know, like earlier in I think the first half when she was driving with Okabe, like that was great. That was an awesome scene. And then you had her in this episode being a fucking badass and taking out Leskinen. It was just whenever she was around, I actually liked her a lot. Suzuha was great this season. Daru ended up being like low key MVP with the shit he was doing.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
Just rose up with the comic relief now that Hoin Kyoma and like Kurisu and their like fun banter wasn't around anymore, so he had to like fill that void.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think it was what I was saying was like I felt like even Kagari was, you know, even Kagari was kind of redeemed at this end with her kind of finding her role in the story, which I felt like she kind of struggled with with the majority of the series. She's always felt kind of extra, but I think they brought it around pretty well. Besides, like, the side characters that we complained about not getting much focus at all.
Yeah, I even liked what she was saying when she was trying to stop Mayuri from getting the time machine. Just like, I don't want to lose you. This is why I'm doing this. And I'm like, oh, that actually makes sense now, because we just didn't really know much about her character to begin with, and finally we get some sort of explanation as to what she's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's when you get rid of the brainwashing. At least it's not so in-depth, I think, in this world line. This last episode was kind of rushed for the amount of content that they had. It's still good, but
yeah.
Like, it may have been better if they would have taken, like, because they spent 2 episodes on the rooftop stuff in like earlier in the season, and now this one was like 6-7 minutes, where like they could have like snipped that maybe down to 1 and extend this one to 2 or something. But yeah, like, you get, now that she's not under Leskinen's like brainwashing so much, she gets a chance to stand out as a character. And like, I think you saw that earlier, much more too in the anime than in the VN, where she like has her own character and her own personality, where in the VN she's just like sort of sad. Like, there's that whole scene where Suzuha and Kagari are talking like in the CRT room, like about like, you think you had it easy, how like it's also hard for me too, like we're both childs of being like torn apart by time.
Yeah, that's a great point. That like that did feel like a really cool scene to have, but it would also be cool, I think, in general, to kind of, I don't know if I'd want them to flesh out their relationship more. I felt like it was an important part of the series, but I do think we got like a decent amount of that.
Yeah, and that moment, like, where also between Mayuri and Suzuha, where they're in the time machine, they like feel like their impending doom is coming. It felt like there's a little bit too much focus on that on Okabe, but still they had like a good like back and forth, like, oh, you're not gonna be able to talk in 7 years. And they're just like,
yeah,
they're handling it very well, is like still enjoying like what they feel are the last possible moments maybe of their lives. It's very bitter, very bitter, and also very sweet.
I really enjoyed that, because I felt like through all the dramatics, that felt like a great example of getting the like patented Steins Gate dialogue that I've come to really love, which is like they say very realistic things that I feel like characters wouldn't really say, but real people would say. Like, I can imagine people in that situation saying something like joking about something like, oh yeah, you're probably not going to talk in a couple of years, so I mean, like, this, I guess I won't even get to speak to you in 7 years, but so like, this is a great, like, this situation is fine, like joking about something like that in the face of despair just feels like something very authentic. And it was a nice, like, very small reminder of like why I love this series so much.
They literally became the "this is fine" meme.
This is fine.
Instead, it's like time disappearing around instead of a fire.
It's all this distortion.
Yeah. I don't know if I feel like this is fine now that we're saying goodbye, though. It's so sad. Well, we do have the OVA coming out. That'll be fun. But this is sad until then.
Yeah. It could be in the 18,000 BC. Oh, because like I'd always thought that was going to be, that scene was going to take place in like 75 million years ago, because you have this like tease in the original Steins Gate where Mayuri's like talking to Okabe, and it's like, we're lost 75 million years ago. But then this one, they flashed to 18,000 BC. And I was trying to figure out what that was. And so I put on my astronomy hat, because like I know a little bit about astronomy. I'm like, okay, the star Vega, like, because of the Earth's axial tilt wobble, like every 26,000 years, the North Pole or the North Star, what is like considered the North Star, changes. So right now it's Polaris, and every 26,000 years it changes. And so I was like, okay, because Vega is one of these stars, maybe that's it. And so I was thinking, okay, this is a science adventure series. Maybe they decided to tie it all together with now Vega being Orihime and Okabe being Hikaboshi. Like, Mayuri is now the North Star back in like 18,000 BC, and Okabe Hikaboshi is guiding to like come back and save her. So I loaded up Stellarium, which is an astronomy program, to see if that was true, and I found out all the stuff I just mentioned is true, but it has bullcrap in this context because it's wrong, because it would have to be like 12,000 BC instead. So it was a complete dead end, and I have no idea why it's 18,000 BC.
I think all this tells me is that you put about 10 times more thought into it than they did when writing it. Because I have a feeling they meant like they had a throwaway line in the original and then they kind of forgot for this sake and just kind of threw in a number. I have a feeling, but I would love to believe they did the research that you did for that. And in the future, I hope they will hire you so you can help fact check these things so we don't get a similar mistake.
I think maybe it was just like a throwaway line by the author. Like, where did they get sent? And he's like, oh, it's 20,000 years ago. And so like, okay, so it's 18,000 BC. Boom, done.
Yeah, exactly. Like they just threw a time in, and like it's interesting to think of also like where did they end up, because it looks like some weird desert wasteland, and I'm pretty sure we still had civilization back in 18,000 BC, but I'm not an expert, so I'm not gonna gripe about that when I get my hype post-credit scene.
Somebody somewhere was saying they were expecting dinosaurs to show up.
Oh my god, that would be so dang. That would just be really funny to see. It was really cool to see. I like how they tied it back into that, like, so not like, I guess it was kind of felt like a throwaway little scene before original series where you see Mayuri in that like desert area talking about how like she'll find a way back to Okabe, and it was great to tie that back in because if anything, like Steins Gate Zero feels like it's wrapping up any loose ends the original had and then adding more for our enjoyment, and that's just a perfect way to tie it back in without taking away from the original and adding some new hype stuff.
They still have to explain how Okabe ever got reading Steiner.
Oh,
so
didn't they?
Maybe there's
explain
still
that?
a third series. It's like there's that bed scene where he has like
he got it cold where he almost died and then like survived, but he had that same like reading Steiner thing. So I'll take that as like he was born with it, and it's so extreme it almost killed him, but then it didn't because he was able to survive. I will take it as that. Hopefully that'll do until we hopefully get another entry. If not, I'm fine, but I'll take it as that.
I've never really thought it was necessary to explain how he got reading Steiner. I'm just fine with it just saying he's just had it.
Yeah.
It's just like a mental attribute that, you know, he just has it. That's it.
Because they do say that like everyone has it a little bit, but he has it in a more extreme way than most people do. And they kind of hinted at that with like Mayuri's friends, where they have like a bit more extreme versions as well. But, you know, like they've never like time traveled, so they haven't gotten to experience it as much. So we could, for all we know, it's like other people have that reading Steiner ability, but like Okabe is the only one who's both successfully time traveled and been aware of it due to his own actions.
Also, no divergence meters, I think, at all, like actually inside the world.
Yeah, they didn't make them. Yeah, they didn't have divergent meters in Steins Gate Zero. They just had it in like, you know, like the black cards for us. Like they showed us, but like the characters themselves didn't know. That was interesting, but I like what we got. You know, I'm glad I had some worries for Steins Gate Zero, but ultimately it was a treat, and I was so glad I got to watch it airing weekly. It was cool to see, and it was cool to talk about this every 2 weeks.
Thanks for everyone who's helped make this such an amazing 6 months following this anime. You know,
this was my time to thank you guys because like I guess I'm the host. I don't know. I feel like it was a huge joint effort between like me and Maz, of course, and then Bacon helped out a lot, you know. Becker and Fate helped out too, but also like we had so many amazing guests. Like you, Admiral, like we've had so many amazing guests over the past couple months. I feel like I don't remember a time before Steins Gate Zero, even though I know it did exist. Yeah, we've had so many amazing guests on the series. I'm so glad we had people like tune in to listen to this. I'm so thankful for everyone who like helped support us along the way. So thank you for joining us on the 6 months journey. Thank you to all the guests who appeared. Thank you, White Fox, for making Steins Gate Zero in the first place. You know, I don't know. I'm really thankful for all this. It was a really fun experience. And I hope you guys had fun listening to it. I don't think we're going to do another weekly or bi-weekly series for an upcoming seasonal, but we have a lot of fun planned as a podcast that I hope everyone will stay tuned for because we have some fun stuff coming up. But in the meantime, I guess this is where I say goodbye to Steins Gate Zero. I guess this is goodbye.
This is a goodbye to the best anime ever. Not Zero specifically, but you know, since it's whatever.
Are you gonna do an OVA episode? Or is it?
Well, we could, you know, I don't know. I don't know if you saw this before, but so we did like Violet Everweekly, and that had his OVA come out. Now we have Steins Gate Zero, where we have an OVA coming out. So we could just do an OVA episode and talk about both in one sitting.
Oh my god, we should do
that would be really dank. That would be dank. That would be fun to do. I mean, I'm down for it.
And also incredibly confusing.
Yeah, we'll just tell people like, oh, if you haven't watched the series, just stop listening right here. That would be pretty funny to do. But I mean, I'm down to do an OVA episode when it comes out. Yeah, I think I'm down to do that. But so I guess it is Tutoru until then. But so thank you for joining us on this episode, Admiral. You are a great guest. We'll have to have you back. Maybe force you to watch other anime that apply to podcasts we'll do. I'm not sure, but I mean, I'd be down for that if you are.
Oh, well, we'll see. I'd like to come back. It's been fun. You guys are pretty chill.
Thank you.
And you guys put together a good podcast, like about a series that I'm surprised there aren't more people doing, like Steins Gate stuff, because it's the GOAT.
Yep.
Greatest.
But listen to the Admiral, guys. When you are about to salute, remember that the Admiral said Steins Gate is the GOAT. It's not just like huge stands like me and Maz with our crazy avatars for Steins Gate. It's the Admiral saying it's the GOAT. So now it's fact. Steins Gate is the GOAT. You can't debate it. It's Steins Gate's the GOAT.
It's a perfect world line.
It is. We are in the Steins Gate world line in which it is perfect. And that's the best way to put it. Yeah. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, Maz, Bacon, Bex, and Fate for all your help. And thank you for everyone listening.
To fucking Roo.